Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Samantha Previte. As always, I will be answering your mailbag questions every Thursday on this podcast, which you can submit for future shows to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Please stop sliding into my DMs and please send them to us in a actual fashion because we are so excited to answer them. And I am excited, as always, to be joined by Brandon Anderson, who is an NFL and NBA writer here at Action Network, who you can find on Twitter at WheatonBrando. Brandon is giving out winners constantly on both sports, with both going right now. He never sleeps. Literally, he's like out there, like, I don't know, you're basically not even human, dude. So, but we thank you for that. You know, not all heroes wear capes.
That's right. I mean, who needs sleep? That's NFL season. It's NBA season. Sleep can come in July when there's a break between both of those. There's too much money to be made right now. So we got fantasy advice to give. We got NFL picks to be made, NBA props. We'll sleep later. Sleep is for zombies, right?
Sleep is absolutely for zombies. How have your props been doing for the NBA?
So opening night did not go well. We went 0 for 3 on opening night, and that was not the way I wanted to start the year. But we went, I think, 2-1 on each of the nights, the 3 nights in a row after that. Friday went well, had a few extra picks there and came out well ahead. We did one of my favorites, do a plus juice day, where we go with some props that are all at plus odds or better. So, it feels like we're getting back in the rhythm. And then I was off for a few days, off NBA, switching to NFL over the weekend.
You have no
now this is about the time of the week we are back over to NBA to get some more winners out here. So hopefully week 2 goes well.
Are you looking forward to this spooky Thursday night game where there's going to be no Davante Adams, no Allen Lazard, and that's it for now? But you don't know. I mean, there's still a whole at least 24 hours before, as of we are recording this right now on Wednesday midday, certainly could be more names added, certainly concerning for the Packers and any kind of fantasy. I mean, I told people to go out there and pick up Randall Cobb, but he's certainly not the sexiest name out there. Anyone that you think benefits the most from those guys being out?
The Cardinals.
They are so lucky. That is, they're good and they're lucky, but obviously,
it's a bummer. This was the game that I've had circled on the Thursday night calendar all year. We get all these clunkers. They're stashing all the Jaguars games on Thursday nights. Like, oh, we got to give everyone a national TV game. And then lo and behold, shining right there in the middle of the calendar, Green Bay, Arizona, 6-1, 7-0. And we can't have nice things. So I don't know. The line on this one was the Packers were underdogs by like 3.5 points, and then as soon as the Davante news came out, it jumped to 6, which is a suspiciously high amount for a line to move for a receiver. And so I think that the books are wondering who else might be out on here. And then we saw Allen Lazard out, and by the time you guys listen to this, maybe more names too. So I'm hoping that we still get a good game here. I've been wanting to fade Arizona, and I keep picking against them in my column. And this was a great spot for Rodgers, but he's got to throw to somebody, and there's just not a lot of options. So we'll talk about Randall Cobb and the prize picks later. I do like him this week, but it's a tough break for Green Bay here.
Just quick, handicapping question. If you just heard that Davante Adams was out for injury, so there wasn't a risk of infection of the rest of the wide receiver core, how much do you think a line should move?
Yeah, I would say, typically anyone that's not a quarterback, I'm not expecting the line to move too significantly. So when the Davante news came out, I would expect it to move like 0.5 point, maybe a point. Davante, I think, is one of the best receivers in the league, certainly one of the most important to his team receivers, just because he is the guy there and he has such good chemistry with Green Bay or with Aaron Rodgers. So anything for any player that's not a quarterback, anything more than a point would be pretty rare to happen. You're a very, very valuable player, which Davante is, but even then, even last week when Baker Mayfield was out for our Thursday night game, another spooky Thursday night thriller for us. the line, it barely budged, and Baker hadn't been playing well. In case Keenum is decent, but these lines don't swing a lot. The books don't want to have a big liability where they're on one side and the other side, and they don't want people trying to get in the middle and be able to win on both sides there. So yeah, I wouldn't expect it to move a ton, but yeah, this is very fishy to me. As I wrote my picks column, I was like, I liked Green Bay when they were healthy as the underdog. So in theory, I should like them a lot more when you're getting almost a whole touchdown now. But it looks fishy to me, and it feels like the books are setting a trap. It feels like. So I think I'm gonna end up mostly staying away from it. But I will not be staying away from my TV. I want to see what happens here. Maybe Aaron Rodgers can pull something out of his hat. He's certainly done it before.
You talked about the spooky Thursday night game last week. That was my birthday, and the NFL gods gifted me a Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater slop fest. And I barely watched it, to be honest, because I was celebrating my birthday and drinking martinis, and it was very boring I had like the game cast on my phone while I was at dinner, but not watching like the whole thing. It was that is classic Thursday night football, and we ended up kind of getting another possible dud this week.
This one won't be so bad. And that was the real birthday present anyways. The NFL gods gifted you a night without having to pay so much attention. So you got to just enjoy dinner and a few martinis,
Fair.
No late news breaking, no live videos for you to stream. You just got to let the Browns and the Broncos do whatever game it was that they were doing and just let it happen.
Fair enough. All right, let us jump into the segment that we did last week. And I think we're going to keep doing it because it was fun. We're going to put our professor caps on, our doctorate caps, and play hold drop PhD. So why don't you feed me some names? And
all right. So yeah, we're doing hold. Yeah, so we are going to earn our PhDs here. So we're going to go position by position. So we'll start out with 3 quarterbacks. I really like the 3 that you picked here. So we've got Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, and Daniel Jones. So who would you play? Which one would you hold? And who are you dropping?
I know this is yucky, but I'm going to say play Daniel Jones. And I know, but it's the matchup for me. Kansas City's giving up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've just looked absolutely terrible against the pass. And Daniel Jones also just gives you a lot of floor with the rushing since he's just so athletic. So I'm going to say play him, drop Jameis, even though it's a really good matchup too, in theory, but also like it was a good matchup for Justin Fields in theory last week. And I'm not really convinced. And also I get it. It's a revenge game. It's the game script. And like, you want it to be a narrative, but not you, the royal you. We want it to be a narrative.
I do too. I picked the Saints.
Yeah. But at the same time, I also think they're going to like know how to pick him off really well. They probably picked him off like 800 times in practice and stuff. And
yeah, he's got a lot of reps with the receivers. And by receivers, I mean Tampa Bay's cornerbacks.
Exactly. So I'm probably dropping him. I don't think you really need to start him. And we've seen some of the limitations of that passing game. And then hold on to Trevor Lawrence. I do think that there will be games that I'm certainly going to start him.
Yeah, I'm with you on holding Lawrence. He's only had 1 game over a touchdown, but he's played a lot better with the last 4. He struggled the first couple of weeks. He feels like he's kind of, getting his feet a little bit. So I want to hold him. There's some upside there. I'm going to flip on the other 2, though. I'm cutting Daniel Jones. And yes, if you are going to play him, this is the week to do it. When you're playing the Chiefs, that's the time to do it. But if Jones is a nice runner, but I worry that that's really the only fantasy value I'm getting. Like, I'm waiting all game for him to break one of those 25-yard runs or to maybe score a touchdown. If you only look at the passing, his passing numbers really have only made him playable in the 1 game out of 7 so far. So yes, against the Chiefs, probably you can count on that to be a little better. I just think Jameis actually has some pretty good upside. He's had a 4-touchdown game, a 5-touchdown game. He actually is running a little bit, which is new for him. He's at 126 yards already. So he's well on pace for a career high there. He's only had 3 interceptions too. So that's new. You normally, that's just that's a first quarter for Jameis Winston usually. So only 3 for the entire season so far. I think it's working a little bit. And I do like the matchup against Tampa. They're missing 3, maybe 4 of their top corners. So I think that they'll be ready. I think the secondary can be beat. The Saints matched really well with the Bucs last year. The one thing that they didn't match well at is that Drew Brees couldn't throw. He was done, especially by the playoffs. It was hard to watch. Jameis is a big arm, so I think that he actually can damage that secondary. Just head to head, just this week, would I play Daniel Jones or Jameis? I think it'd be close, but Jameis of these 3 is the one guy that I think could actually become a more reliable fantasy starter. So I'm going to cut Daniel Jones and I'm going to play Jameis and still hold on to Lawrence.
I think that's fair for sure. I wasn't really thinking about it past this week. And they are all kind of in that same range of like right outside of like the QB1 conversation. So they're streamers. And I just think the matchup is a little better for Jones. But like you said, I haven't been blown away by any of his passing this year.
All right, speaking of not blown away is the theme of these 3 running backs. So here we go. D'Ernest Johnson, Samaje Perine, and Mike Davis. Holy smokes, we are in trouble here. Can we just drop all 3 of these guys? We're in rough shape. We got to play one. Who are you playing?
So I think I'm probably playing D'Ernest Johnson. It's not necessarily the best matchup, but we know how like run heavy the Browns are. And I also am concerned about Baker's health. So already, I think even with a healthy Baker, they're just, running the ball a ton. And Kareem Hunt is going to be out for the next few weeks. And I know D'Ernest Johnson doesn't necessarily fill that Kareem Hunt role, but it still touches that I think will go to him too, especially if Nick Chubb isn't 100%. So I'm going to say start him. I would hang on to Samaje Perine. I think he's a very valuable insurance policy / backup. Like a lot of these guys don't have a really good backup, but I actually think Samaje Perine's a decent backup to Joe Mixon if anything happens to him. And we actually saw him get a lot of touches with a quote unquote healthy Mixon. Mixon wasn't on the injury report at all last week and still somehow split carries with Samaje Perine. So I'm not necessarily counting on him for a ton of production, even though it's a really good matchup against the Jets. But I do think I want to hang on to him because I think he would be like immediately in that high end RB2, possibly swinging for the fences RB1 in the right matchups if Mixon were to go down, and we know that he has that speckled injury history. Mike Davis, I am ready to drop, like throw out of my 16th floor window. I don't know, like I obviously this was a big swing and miss for me. We've talked about Mike Davis ad nauseum, and we've talked about the Falcons in general. We've actually seen the Falcons look a lot better recently in terms of like their pass game, but Mike Davis had like 1 point all game last week. So I am not excited to start him, and I think he's droppable in most leagues.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on this one. I think if Chubb and Hunt are both out, then D'Ernest Johnson is the right play here. Even if Chubb plays, we know that they like to play a couple running backs. So maybe now that he's proved himself, maybe get some touches. I would say I might, if we still have Mike Davis on a roster after all this, when he has disappointed so much, and he burned me as well. He was one of the guys I liked a lot this year. I might hold one more week because he is playing Carolina. It's a revenge game. He was on your Panthers last year and had some big lines for your guys with McCaffrey out. So Atlanta's offense too, I have my eye on them. I did some digging into that game, and Atlanta, their offense really has started to click a little bit over these last 4 weeks, and they haven't played anyone good. So maybe that's it. They're just playing,
they're
New
not
York
playing anyone
New York
good this week. So
I wasn't going to say it, but I'm not disagreeing with that. But yeah, like by EPA, actually, the Falcons expected points added. They're actually number 2 in the league over the last 4 weeks, which I didn't, expect was coming. They added expected points to my expectation of them too. So I think that the offense under Arthur Smith is coming around a little bit. So I do think there could still develop some value there. I'm still leery about Cordero Patterson. I don't love these 3 guys, so I don't see much about any of them. If you have a good gut feeling about one, I think trust your gut on it is what I would say.
Yeah, I did
All
have
right.
to pick. I had to dredge down and pick some really gross
Yeah,
guys for
this
these
is a rough
segments.
one.
So I know you don't really actually want to start any of them.
Yeah, my real recommendation is put your phone away and take the kids trick or treating. It's Halloween on Sunday, and just hope for the best. All right, a receiver is not a whole lot better here. So let's. I like this one though because we have one superstar name and two non-star names. So I'm curious, would you go with Odell Beckham Jr. or do you want to ride with Tim Patrick or Darnell Mooney?
So Tim Patrick has the best matchup of the three for sure against Washington's secondary, but I'm not excited about anything about this Denver pass game, especially with Jerry Jeudy coming back. So I think he's droppable, to be honest. And I mean, all three of these guys are actually really droppable in my brain right now. So, maybe Darnell. I know, like I put.
You made the question.
I know I put these names in there, but I like didn't think this through 100%. Like I want to drop all three. Darnell Mooney might be the only guy that I'm necessarily like. I mean, considering starting, I don't want to start Odell. Who wants to start Odell right now? Like we just talked about how their pass game has been not super great. Jarvis Landry's back, and just I don't know. I think he's droppable too against Pittsburgh. Darnell Mooney, I mean, he's like the last guy in that Bears passing game that I'm even really considering. He clearly has better chemistry with Fields, and that's a low upside situation to start with. So probably start Darnell Mooney and hate myself. Hang on to Odell. I think there could be some upside, and drop Tim Patrick.
Yeah, this is a rough trio. I also would like to drop all of them. Well, no, I would not drop Odell Beckham just because he shouldn't anymore, but he still has that name. He still is a name that should evoke trade value. And for that same reason, I would also play Odell Beckham of these three, just because if nothing else, if I play Mooney or Patrick and they get like one catch for 8 yards, I'm gonna be mad at myself all day. What a stupid decision playing one of these guys. If I play Odell Beckham and he gets one catch for 8 yards, I'll be mad at Odell Beckham. He sucks. Why is he so bad? At least have someone else to blame. But the talent is still there, and he's actually healthy enough to be on the field. I don't think he's fully healthy, so I think that's part of the problem. But I do like him a little better with Landry back, actually. I think that getting a little attention off of him could help. So, I mean, I don't want to play Mooney or Patrick, and I don't really feel the need to hang on to them too much. So I'm definitely going to hang on to Beckham. And if I have to play someone of these three, I may as well throw them out there.
Fair enough. This one is tricky because they're all disgusting.
Yes. The tight end, we have some better options. So PhD, Mo Alley Cox, who I learned it's Mo Alley Cox, not Mo Alley Cox. The Alley goes with the last name hyphenated. That was new for me. So Mo Alley Cox, CJ Uzoma, or Jared Cook. I like all three of these options, actually. What did you think of these three?
Yeah, they're definitely all solid options. I would say Cook has maybe more of the rest of season appeal of the three because I like the offense, but this week is not great. They're playing New England, who are actually been really good against tight ends this year. CJ Uzoma is absolutely on fire. I think he has like 5 touchdowns in 4 games, and they play the Jets. That's just a cupcake matchup. So I'm going to say start him, hold Jared Cook, and Mo Alley Cox is just a guy that I am not necessarily excited about because I don't think the volume is there, and he just kind of remains touchdown dependent for me. And, you know, if T.Y. Hilton gets healthy, that's just another mouth they need to feed. So I don't know, Carson Wentz, like that's not a necessarily sexy offense that I'm excited to buy into. So start CJ Uzomah, hold Jared Cook, and drop Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah, I agree with start CJ Uzoma. He's just on fire. You have to play him as hot as he's been. He had 2 scores last week. He's, like you said, 5 touchdowns, 217 yards the last 4 games. I'm trying to trade him if I have him. He seems like a sell high guy, but as long as I have him, I got to put him in my lineup. He's been very good. Cincinnati's offense is really clicking. I actually want to hold Mo Alley Cox. I think it's close between him and Cook. The thing with Cook, and normally I know I'm all about like get the guy from the better offense. he does seem to have a little higher floor. You know, you can trust the yards and catches a little bit more. Carson Wentz loves his tight ends. You know, I'm the North Dakota State guy, and I've been watching Carson for a long time, and he always loves tight ends, especially in the red zone. And Mo Cox has been a great red zone target for a few years now. He's tall. I think he's a former basketball player. He's got that jump ball ability to just go up and get the score. 4 touchdowns the last 4 weeks. He is touchdown dependent, but I like his chances of getting more touchdowns. And the Colts are playing pretty well. So he's a guy that, you know, I feel like I kind of stumbled upon him a few years ago as a playable option. Just like he just looks like a guy. He reminds me of like an Antonio Gates or someone that, like, now I'm not saying he's going to put up that sort of season, but just the ability to catch that jump ball at the goal line has always intrigued me. And so he's getting a little more snaps these days and some opportunities. So I like Allie Cox, as I have now learned. And so I don't mind Cook. I'm not excited to drop him, but he seems like a guy who's kind of a fringe tight end starter. I'm usually not one to keep 2 tight ends around. So if you don't have another option, he's probably fine. But I think all three of these options are fine if you don't have, I don't know, if you don't have Travis Kelce. Apparently, we can't even count on Darren Waller these days.
Oh, don't even remind me. I left him in a couple lineups this week. Total rookie move, but I was packing and just really distracted before the 4:00 games. Like I had red zone on and I was just kind of in the zone, and the witching hour passed me, and I just
not much of a witching hour last week. We better get more witching on Halloween. If we don't get witching on Halloween, the NFL needs to fix things.
Very, very true. It was a weird week for sure.
It was. All right, I've got a few more PhDs here. Since it is Halloween after all, we need a few play hold drops here. So what do you think? Play, hold, or drop Snickers, Twix, or Reese's Peanut Butter Cups?
Ooh, play Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. They are the 101, I think, of Halloween candy. Twix, or I think I would say hold Snickers, but you got to put them in the freezer. That's the best version of Snickers. And then drop Twix, but I also like Twix too. So it's close for me. I think there's just more flavor profile in the Snickers.
Okay. All right. We're getting some good analysis on this. I like it. I think it's tough. Twix is the bottom for me, even though Twix, I agree, is good. Snickers, I like.
They're also messy, you know, like when you eat them and like the cookie like kind of falls apart sometimes.
That's true. A little crummy.
That's like my only like criticism of the Twix.
Yeah, I like that you said the frozen Snickers. I had a great uncle that when I was a kid, anytime that we go to his house, he was my favorite great uncle. And do you know why? Because anytime we showed up, he would walk over to the freezer and he'd hand us a frozen Snicker bar every time. I love that. So uncles out there, if you want to be the best uncle, just keep some Snickers frozen. And I'm not talking about like an ice cream Snickers either. Those are great too. Freeze the actual Snickers and eat it. So yeah, for Uncle Elder, I will play the Snickers and I will hold on to Reese's because they're delicious too. Yeah. All right, PhD, play, hold, or drop Smarties, Nerds, or candy corn. It's time for the people to know, what do you think about candy corn?
First of all, if you like candy corn, like you're a psychopath. Like this is scary. You probably like standard scoring in fantasy football. You probably like don't like decimal scoring or like something really weird and out there.
You start 2 kickers in your league.
Right, exactly. Like just weird stuff. You love the kicker. You love the defense, whatever it is. I don't trust you if you like candy corn. So I literally my very first viral tweet was a candy corn tweet about like, it was somehow like Bills quarterbacks and candy corn all in one. I basically ranked Nathan Peterman below candy corn in like
the rough, but fair.
But fair, yeah. So I'm gonna definitely say drop candy corn, and then it was Smarties and what else?
And Nerds.
Smarties are just too chalky for me to like really consume a large amount of them. So I would probably say hold them and play the Nerds. The Nerds are kind of fun and it's like an only Halloween thing.
Yeah, right. Nerds are fun. Everyone should agree that Nerds are fun. I've been telling people this my entire life. Nerds are fun. I agree. I'm with you on all three.
We love the name too. So
yeah, we do. We love our Nerds. All right, a couple more. Play, hold, or drop. caramel apple, pumpkin pie, pumpkin spice latte. I need to know, where are you at on the pumpkin spice latte?
I mean, I think it's like overrated, and I do think it's a little bit like become the moniker of the basic person and in whatever, like that plus the avocado toast. I could go with like, I haven't had one all year and I could take it or leave it. Like I could just go my whole life without having another PSL flavored anything. So it's not like I hate it, but whatever. So I'm probably going to say drop that, hold the caramel apple, and play the pumpkin pie because I do love pumpkin pie. And that is like such a just like a seasonal mood. And I love Thanksgiving is the best holiday. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. And it like reminds me of Thanksgiving. So yeah, definitely love that, especially if it has like some really good like spices on it. And then you can put like whipped cream or Cool Whip on top. It's aces.
Now we're talking. I may or may not have had a slice of pumpkin pie for breakfast this morning. So
I love that. That is such a mood.
The answer is clear for me. Yeah, I was at Sam's the other day and they had pumpkin pie, and I was like, yeah, I agree. I will buy the pumpkin pie. And growing up, pumpkin pie, like that's the morning after Thanksgiving, a slice of pumpkin pie. Because like the thing with Thanksgiving is you have the giant meal, and then the pumpkin pie, like you can't eat it right after the meal because you're so full already. Like the move is take a nap, go watch some football, and then like 2 hours later, now when you're a little ready, now go for the pumpkin pie. So you get that like late afternoon pumpkin pie, and then the morning after pumpkin pie. That's the way to go.
What time do you have Thanksgiving dinner? This is like, I always thought that everyone had Thanksgiving dinner at like 2 p.m., which psychopaths.
That's when I go. That's when we do
okay.
it.
But like, I just found out that not everyone does that and calls it dinner. So I was just curious if that's like a regional thing, if that's just like, I don't know. So good to hear that at least another person does it at like 2.
All right. Well, we're moving one holiday ahead. Let's do one more fall one here. Play, hold, or drop. Pumpkin carving, apple picking, or going on a hayride.
No hayride. I would pass on that. Just not my thing. I get like car sick looking at moving objects. So I could already I'm already visualizing getting sick in the hayride. So probably gonna drop that. Apple picking, I like that. That's fun. That's also like great for the gram. So you get like a picture out of it. And then pumpkin carving, like it's fun, but I'm also not artistic in any way. Like whatever that gene is, God gave me 0% of it. And it's just like not fun for me, like to have to do any kind of like art project. I end up just like completely messing it up. Don't give me like sharp objects. That's never a recipe for success for me because I will cut myself. I will hurt myself. I don't know. So yeah, like, I mean, it's cool in theory, but I'm going to say hold that one and play the apple picking.
I think that you are vastly overestimating how fast the hayride goes. I mean, this is like a 4 mile an hour ride. As someone who's gone on,
I've only done it as a kid. I don't remember what it was like.
This is not like a drag race hayride here. So the thing to avoid with hayride is the hay. You know, if you either have the allergies or just don't like scratchy straw being stuck down your shirt, which is definitely what happens.
Maybe like I don't really love the tactile experience.
Agree. So I'm out on pumpkin carving. I don't have artsy, like it's not in me either. So we won't be doing any art projects on our mail pod. But so I'm gonna drop that. I'll hold on to the hayride because I'm all about activities where I just get to chill and nothing happens. Like, yeah, I could sit on hay for a while. That sounds fine. But apple picking, especially if it's Honeycrisp apples are the only number one apple. So to me, that's the key fall ingredient is Honeycrisp apples. That's when I know fall is really here. So I'm in on Honeycrisp apples and in on apple picking. So I will play the apple picking.
I have a bonus one. Do you like, is it the corn maze or whatever? Like,
so I debated a corn maze was my fourth choice for this last question here. And I was like, well, I'm from North Dakota. I don't know if normal people even know what a corn maze is or go through a corn maze.
I definitely know what the corn maze is. I grew up in New England, which I feel like fall is really big in New England. Like whether or not we have a lot of cornfields, it certainly like is just a thing. Like everyone talks about like witches from Salem, and it's just like a big thing. So
Sure.
yeah, I certainly have been to a corn maze before. I don't know. I have anxiety. I don't think I could do that. Like as an adult, I would not enjoy that.
Would you rather go through a corn maze or haunted house?
Oh God, corn maze. No
Okay.
haunted, no, like corn maze in my brain. Do you know like the fourth Harry Potter book where they're like in that like maze with the changing things?
Yeah.
Like that's how I would feel.
Okay.
So like, but it's also like not scary. Like I do not like scary movies. I don't like any of that. I will be a total baby about any of that. So no on the haunted house. That would be the worst date idea ever, like for sure, because I don't like people do this for fun, and I'm like, why would you do this for fun? I would just like cry. I think I would actually just like cry as an adult, so depending on how scary we're talking.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not a big scary person either. The only, to me, the only upside of a scary movie or scary haunted house is if it is a date that hopefully she's a little scared too and has to like, cuddle up a little closer. There is a little upside in that, so that's a good move. But otherwise, corn maze, that's a nice in between. Like I also enjoy the unintended pun of a corn maze, since maze is also corn with the I in there. So I always giggle to myself a little bit about that. So, I can enjoy that too. All right. Should we get to our mailbag questions here?
Let us get to it. It's been a
All right.
hot minute.
So question number 1 from @PDX Troy Boy: Khalil Herbert or Dame Williams until Monty is back? Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm definitely going to go Herbert. And it's not just that he had so much of a better game than Damian Williams last week, but he did see 18 of the 21 running back touches for 100 yards against the NFL's best run defense, while Williams saw 3 carries for 5 yards. Herbert was also a little more involved in the passing game, caught 5 of 5 targets. Williams had 1 target. I honestly think Herbert has done enough here to establish a role for himself, even once Montgomery returns. Maybe not a huge role, but enough that it should probably make Montgomery managers a little bit nervous. So I think like what we've seen from him has been more impressive. And then I think it'll be some kind of timeshare until Montgomery gets back. But if you have to roster one, I'm picking Herbert.
Yeah, I agree. Herbert looks like the guy, and Chicago continues to they have like the most run-centric offense in the league. So look, if you can put up 100 yards against Tampa Bay, then Herbert is definitely worth playing, I think. All right. Up next from @Thumpa78. I like this one. Which Jones is the better start for week 8? Julio Jones or Marvin Jones Jr.? So which one are you jonesing for?
Ooh, let's see what you did there. I would say this is actually really close, and this sounds insane. Like if you told me in week 1, hey, should I start Marvin Jones or Julio Jones? Like obviously we would laugh, but we're now just laughing, crying if we have Julio Jones on our rosters right now. I'm going to assume this is some kind of PPR format, since as I mentioned, if you're playing in a standard league, you're probably like a candy corn loving psychopath. I'm just kidding. I don't actually mean that, but I'm assuming there is some kind of award for receptions. I'm probably going to go with Jones. So I think both matchups are really solid here. The Jaguars face Seattle, who are giving up the 6th most passing yards this season, while the Titans face the Colts, who also have a very exploitable secondary, 8th most fantasy points, 2 wide receivers this year. And for the Titans, Ryan Tannehill has had like 1 good game all year. And he threw multiple touchdowns against the Colts in that first meeting. So, I mean, certainly a good matchup, but I just think like argument for Julio. He has more upside than Marvin Jones, I think. But I think all of this is to say that I think Marvin Jones just has more guaranteed targets. It's in an offense that I don't necessarily trust as much as the Titans, and I don't think that's like a hot take. The Titans have just beaten the Bills and the Chiefs, and we're talking about an Urban Meyer led offense. But he's coming off of one of his best game of the year. He caught 100 yards and a touchdown before the bye. They'll be well rested. He also has half of his games this year with at least 6 catches, which is obviously huge for PPR. Julio has 1 game that's like that. So I think that Julio is actually a really good buy low at this point, because I think he will get better. I think he's still being a little bit hampered by this hamstring injury, but this week I'm probably going to go Marvin Jones, but it's very close for me.
That good, because you earlier you told listeners to go with Jones when you made the choice, which was a very sneaky choice since they're both Jones.
I'm so sorry.
Just so it's clear,
Marvin
is Marvin.
I confused myself. This question is very confusing.
Well, I agree. If you can't go wrong by choosing Jones here. If you go with Jones, you're guaranteed to get the right answer on this one. I surprised myself here. I'm all about player studs. And I'm all about, like, don't overthink it with lineups. I overthink it. I get the wrong guy and then I'm mad at myself. So I just try to stick with the guys I know are good. So that would mean Julio Jones. I'm going with Marvin also. And I think you made the case right. Like, Julio has really only had 1 good fantasy game all year. And that was 6 catches, 128 yards against Seattle, who Marvin Jones is playing this week. So that the matchup is right for Marvin. He's actually been pretty solid. He's had, I would say, 4 very playable fantasy games. We talked about Trevor Lawrence before, how he's improving. I'm not sure that I necessarily want to buy low on Julio either. He's clearly the second guy. A.J. Brown is looking good and healthy now. It's a run team. So I don't know, like, Julio Jones, the player, clearly talented, Hall of Fame guy, awesome receiver. But I don't know if he's going to get healthy. He doesn't really tend to get healthy. Like, once the injury comes, it doesn't really come back that year. And I don't know. I feel like the Titans bought high on Julio Jones and brought him in. And I'm just not sure that I'm seeing it. Like, to me, Julio Jones, if I have him, is a guy that I'm waiting for that 1 game. And I'm trying to sell him to the other person that's trying to buy on it, just because I just don't see a huge role for him. But Marvin surprised me. I think Marvin is the right play here while you're waiting out Julio.
Yeah, this is going to be a frustrating game where, like, Nick Westbrook-Akina gets the 2 touchdowns that Ryan Tannehill throws, or the 1 touchdown, because he really just has 1 game all year with multiple touchdowns. So yeah, as you mentioned,
well, it was against the Colts.
Fair enough. I just, as you mentioned, it's the team is just too run heavy for me to really buy into it right now. But I do think, like, if someone is, like, dropping him, for instance, which I know is a question later on, I do think he is still worth picking up for the upside.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Up next from @GrahamTeedKeyPO, he's got 4 quarterbacks, and they're all pretty good here. So Stafford, Burrow, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson, an awful lot of quarterbacks. Do I hold on to Wilson/Watson and make a move at a later time? What do you think?
I'm going to assume this is a 2 quarterback league, because otherwise I'm not sure why you would be rostering 4 quarterbacks. But anyway, congrats on somehow having 4 solid quarterbacks on your roster. Stafford and Burrow are studs and should be QB1s for rest of season. I think both also have pretty good matchups this week against the Texans and Jets, respectively. So they're definitely plays. As for your other quarterbacks, I don't know where you stand on this, but I personally don't have any faith that Deshaun Watson is really going to play this year. And so I think if you need the space, I certainly don't have a problem with you dropping him. And even if he plays, there's no guarantee that he's going to be better than Stafford or Burrow. I think, like, yeah, we've seen him be a phenomenal fantasy quarterback, but if he ends up in Miami, I mean, I don't love that offense, for instance. And like I said, I just, like, there's a good chance that he doesn't play at all. So I'm fine if you want to drop him. I'd hang on to Wilson. I just think he has really great upside, obviously. For the situation though, like, if you end up, Wilson comes back and you have 3 startable quarterbacks, I would probably try to deal one of them for a skill position player, just because I think it's a little bit unwieldy to have this number of quarterbacks on your roster.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. Wilson, Stafford and Burrow are good. You want to keep them. Wilson is good and hopefully should only miss, maybe even only 1 more game. Seattle has a bye week after this one, and then maybe he's back after that. However, if Seattle loses to Jacksonville, which is possible, they're only like a field goal favorite, and, their season has really gone off the rails. So if Seattle loses again here, even if they win, if you get another inkling that like the time comes out and it's like, oh, Wilson might be another couple of weeks, at that point, I think in redraft, he might be droppable because at that point, Seattle's season is basically just done. And I don't know why Russell Wilson's going to rush back at that point to try to do anything. So if they win this week, that helps your Russell Wilson stock. Like it's not like Geno Smith is going to beat him out for the job or anything like that. So I want to keep Wilson for sure. I would rather keep Watson also if you can. If you have him on your roster, then you must have had him for a while, probably. You've at least held on a little bit. And we're finally getting, a little life in the Watson rumors. So I am not optimistic. I agree with what you said. I think that it does look a little more likely. I mean, I thought he's just is not part of the conversation. So the fact that he suddenly is in these trade rumors and everything, all right, it looks like the trade is possible. Even if the trade does happen, I'm not sure that it means he plays right away. Yeah. And even if he does play right away, will he be fantasy relevant? Will he be good? He's been great in the past. Like he's probably the highest upside guy of these four in theory. But it looks like Miami is where he'd go. They don't exactly have great receivers there for him to throw to. So it's a long game on Watson. If you have to drop one of the four, he's the one for sure that I would drop here. So, but I wouldn't necessarily just cut him just to do it either. Certainly, if it is a 2-quarterback league, keeping all four of these guys should be valuable, or at least trying to trade one of them. Watson probably to me as a guy, if I have him, I'm looking to trade him just for anything that I can get out of it, because you're probably best case scenario, even if he gets traded, even if he gets cleared to play, now he has to meet the new team and learn the new system and all of that. It seems like we're weeks away probably from getting anything useful out of Watson if it ever gets there this year. So I don't think there's a lot there to hang on to, but I wouldn't cut him just to get rid of him, unless, of course, you have other reasons you'd like to do that in Deshaun Watson's case, and I support that decision too if you choose to do that.
Agreed. Did you see that my Carolina Panthers are not going after him? I guess beggars can be choosers.
Sam Darnold, you can't, hard to move on from Sam Darnold these days.
I hate it. Thank you. I hate it so much. I literally thought that game was going to end 5-3. Like
I wish we could have gotten, I think that was a scoregami. I was holding out hope for it if we get our first 5-3 game.
Love that.
All right. So this next question is from Ray, who I might note, by the way, that is 3 of the 4 letters from Ryan. I'm on to you, Ray. I think that this is just Ryan again. Okay. So Ray/Ryan says, grade this trade. Send Damian Harris and Kadarius Toney for Myles Gaskin, Allen Robinson, and Jared Cook. What do you think?
Ooh, I don't like it. I think that's like a B-. I don't love it. Okay. So first, we've already talked about this multiple times, but I don't love being on the receiving end of more players than I'm giving, because it doesn't feel like you're leveling up your team. I get it. You could have holes in your roster and whatever, and necessitates getting more players, but you're also giving away the best player in the trade. And I don't love that either. Damian Harris is, I think, the best player in this trade. He's a locked and loaded RB2 rest of season. I would consider Robinson and Toney a wash at this point, and that is an indictment on Allen Robinson. It's really rough. But Toney, obviously, honestly, I feel like he has more upside than Robinson at this point. Like, you're waiting for that big Robinson week. I don't think it's going to come anymore. Like, should have been last week, and it wasn't last week. So, Toney also has a really good matchup against the Chiefs this week. So I certainly think that he could, if he's healthy, certainly could be a good play. So therefore, I think this equation is just distilled whether or not the difference between Harris and Gaskin is worth one Jared Cook. To me, it's not, because Jared Cook is just a waiver wire caliber dude. I think you could, I don't know your league size. I don't know what's available for you, but guys like CJ Uzoma or Ricky Seals-Jones, who are just guys that were floating around on waivers that were probably 2% rostered last week, a few weeks ago. So you can find guys. And I mentioned this earlier that the Chargers play the Patriots this week, who are giving up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So I don't love it. I think it's a B-. What do you think? You are the trade evaluator, so you should.
Yeah, I think that you're grading on a curve here. I think you're being kind. Don't make this trade. when I look at a trade, the thing that I'm looking for to evaluate is who's the guy, who's the one guy in this deal that I need to pay attention to. The guy is Damian Harris, and I don't want to trade Damian Harris, especially of all weeks. I don't want to trade him the week he's playing the Chargers, who are the worst run defense in the NFL. And I actually really like that matchup for the Patriots. Bill Belichick, he looks at a defense and he says, "What's the thing that you are going to give me? I'm going to keep hammering that until you fix it." And the Chargers don't know how to fix the run defense right now. So I actually think Damian Harris might have a huge game this week. I definitely would not trade him before this matchup. And he's the guy out of these five, he's the guy that I want to come away with. So I would rather keep Damian Harris. I always want to feel like I'm getting the best name in the trade. And of course, that's what everyone thinks. But if I'm not getting the best name, there better be a very good reason. And there's not a very good reason in this trade. So I'm just going to keep Harris. I'm going to play him. And I don't know, maybe after this week, if he does have a big game, you might be able to get a much better trade package for him.
I agree. I love the matchup this week. And I want to note that Myles Gaskin is an interesting name right now because Malcolm Brown just went on IR. And I do feel like he did really well last week too. So I do feel like people are kind of high on him right now, but they also signed Duke Johnson. And I just feel like I'm not like, oh yeah, Duke Johnson's going to be fantasy relevant, but I kind of feel like that speaks to Miami's confidence in Gaskin as the guy. And we've also seen Salvon Ahmed be mixed in there as well. And I think that there's definitely a situation where they're using all three backs or something like that, just because like Gaskin and Gaskin's just not really, really trustworthy. And he's in a Dolphins offense that's not consistent for me. So, and they do play the Bills this week. So I could see him turning back into a pumpkin.
Well, it is Halloween, so it's a good time for him to do it if so. All right, let's go to @JoePeep17. Who should I start this week, Tannehill or Daniel Jones? We talked about both of those guys. Who would you go with this week?
Yeah, I know you're going to go against me, but I like Daniel Jones. Both solid matchups. Chiefs defense has looked abysmal this year, though. 7th most passing yards and 2nd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. He's my top streamer of the week and of, like the guys that would be available. And I think has decent upside, especially if he gets some of his injured receiving core back. Like, I mean, it's just been brutal for the Giants for injuries. Like it was like John Ross last week and Darius Slayton out there, Dante Pettis carrying the water for that team. So I think if they do get some of the guys back, I mean, Sterling Shepard seemed really close last week. He was like a game time scratch. So I think that he could certainly play for this game and should have a monster game. Tannehill did have his best game of the year. We talked about this against the Colts in week 2. Scored 23 fantasy points. It was actually the only game where he's passed for multiple touchdowns. Still, I like the game script in Giants Chiefs more.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. I'm not a big fan of Tannehill. I don't think it's a terrible matchup for him because the Colts secondary is banged up, but you got to go with the game script. The Giants Chiefs game could easily be like one of those 42-35, like not a lot of defense happening in that one. The Chiefs offense still been putting up points, so the Giants are going to have to score. Daniel Jones, like hopefully if you're in a league where you're getting like mega negative points for interceptions or pick sixes, then maybe stay away because that you could rack up points with him that way. That doesn't go well. But I think there's a lot more upside. The Titans game to me, Titans Colts, it's a division game. It's a tough one. It's really big for both of them. Seems like it'd be like 20-19 or just like some kind of low scoring, close game. Look, even when they are throwing touchdowns, apparently that's Derrick Henry now too. He's just doing everything for this team.
Yes.
So I'm not excited about Tannehill. It is a good matchup for Jones. I do like, if you have to play Jones, it's a good week. I just like Jameis a little more earlier, but I think Daniel Jones, he makes sense. He's a very good streamer this week. So, and I think that he'll get some running yardage on the Chiefs too. They tend to give up some points there. So I think you're in good shape with Daniel Jones. Plus Monday night, you got to have a reason to watch.
Even Tannehill, like in really good matchups, has not been super. Yeah. So I just think that they just know that the run game is such a crutch to them that they don't even have to really make him throw at all. So yeah, I'm not super high on him the rest of season for fantasy.
Yeah, he's a guy I wouldn't be I would be fine cutting him if I needed to move on from him. Like he's a fill-in at best if you need it, and not really someone that has a ton of upside to me. All right, next question from Urbancer 97, who I think is probably just Urban Meyer writing in again. So they write, Julio is available in my league. Is it worth dropping Jarvis Landry for him? Neither would be starting right now, but season long, who would you rather have?
These are definitely yucky options. I think I would scoop up Jones if he's available on your waiver wire. I know he's been a massive disappointment, finished well outside fantasy relevance in 4 of the 5 games he's played this year. But I want to say, I think there's a pretty big difference in terms of like the type of bust that he's been versus someone like Allen Robinson, who has just basically given us no hope. Whereas Julio has made some really athletic catches, and I really do believe he still has upside. We talked about Ryan Tannehill kind of struggling, but I don't think struggling is the correct way to describe the Bears offense right now. Like there's just no life. Struggling would mean like they're really trying, and I'm not even sure that's there. So I mean, I do think Julio is somewhat of a buy low, and if he's available on your wire, I do want to go get him. Landry, I mean, he just doesn't have that upside as Julio has. He's like a safer type guy, but he's like a wide receiver 4. And the Browns are just simply too run heavy for me to really trust any of their receivers, including Odell, just with Baker Mayfield's health waning. And like I said, them having some pretty strong running backs.
Yeah, I agree. Julio, yeah, if you're just stashing one of these two and just waiting for upside to hit, Julio's upside and his talent, and if he gets healthy and if things work out, if they suddenly start passing a lot more, there's obvious way more upside there. Both the teams are run centric, so it's not like we even get the upside in that with Jarvis Landry. There's just not a lot of upside with Landry. It's a guy that's going to be at best, he's gonna in a PPR league get you some catches. But what's funny is Jarvis Landry, I can't remember what year it was, maybe 3 years ago or somewhere in there. Jarvis Landry is one of the single worst fantasy calls I've ever made in my life. Going into one season, he had a good year for the Browns the previous year. It's like maybe a second or third year on the team. And I confidently predicted Jarvis Landry is going to be the wide receiver 1 in all of fantasy, and that he was going to like put up 140 catches. I can't remember who the offensive coordinator was. It was somebody that their wide receiver 1 always had huge numbers, and the Browns just didn't have a lot of options. And I was all in on Jarvis Landry. I had him on every fantasy team, and he stunk. He was terrible. So yeah, I'm out on Jarvis Landry. That's not the guy. Julio Jones could be that guy. Julio Jones could put up those kind of numbers. Jarvis Landry can't, and only a moron would think otherwise. Apparently, I was that moron a few years ago. So no to Jarvis Landry, yes to Julio Jones.
Wow, that is a rough story, man. And
it's not great.
That's pretty funny. What year was that? Did you?
I don't remember what year. Let's see. I'm looking at his numbers here. So
was it the Freddie Kitchens
he's had
year?
4 years in Cleveland. So maybe it was his second year. So first year in Cleveland, he had 81 catches, 976 yards, and 4 scores. And yeah, I think it was the next year, which he ended up going to a Pro Bowl, and he had 83 catches, 1,100 yards, and 6 scores. But I was expecting just a huge year. It was a volume play. I'm all about volume with these guys. And I just remember thinking that he was going to have like a monster number of catches. He did average 14 yards a catch that year, and he had 6 touchdowns, to the second highest. Maybe it wasn't the worst move in the world.
You're making this out to be like he was a total bust.
He was a total bust for when I look, all my friends come to me for fantasy advice. Every person I know had Jarvis Landry on their team. And then every week he'd have like 5 catches for 42 yards because that's what Jarvis Landry does. And they'd be like, dude, why do I have this guy? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Heavy is the crown, right? Being the guy that everyone goes to. All right, let us do the last question.
Yes. All right. So at Jeremy Casperson writes, and this one had a picture too. We wish we could show you the picture because it's a delicious one. Please rank these 4. So this is a Halloween candy question. We've got milk chocolate Hershey bar, crackle, Mr. Good bar, and then the special dark chocolate bar as well. So he says, please rank those 4. And by that, I mean, tell people how Mr. Good bar is superior. So what do you think? Is Mr. Good bar the top of the list?
I literally had to Google what a Mr. Good bar was just now.
No.
So I'm reading that it is just chocolate covered peanuts.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a chocolate bar with peanuts in it.
okay. I mean, that seems fine. I think I like crackles. Those are definitely pretty good. I like those. I would say then the Mr. Good bar. I have to visualize it because I literally have never had it, but I'm gonna say that sounds interesting to me. And then I think Special Dark is probably superior to milk chocolate in the power rankings. What say you, Brandon?
I'm going with milk chocolate number one. I'm surprised. It's like there's just, Hershey's chocolate bar. Look, none of these are amazing. We're not comparing them to like Kit Kat and Twix and Snickers. Like clearly all better. You can have good stuff in your candy, but just a classic Hershey's chocolate. But especially that one little size is the perfect amount. You just put it in your mouth and just don't chew it or anything. Just let it melt. Just enjoy the melty chocolatey goodness. So I like just a classic milk chocolate. I'm not a dark chocolate guy, so that'd be my last pick. Mr. Goodbar is fine. Chocolate with peanuts in it, chocolate without peanuts. Sure. I have no qualms with Mr. Goodbar. I like a good crackle. You get some good texture in there. Those are all good. I'm not mad at any of the choices. Dark chocolate are like the ones that I am happy to share with my friends or my sister, whoever needs to get some dark chocolate in their life. But yeah.
I would say that I actually just don't. I mean, I grew up not loving chocolate at all. And I think that chocolate has grown on me, but only as like part of something else. So like in a Snickers or like with Reese's. I would never go out and buy a chocolate bar that was plain by itself. That said, I would probably prefer dark chocolate over milk chocolate, but like but I just like don't really care that much for just plain chocolate. I don't know.
I feel like that's a little bit of a Halloween hot take. So
It
I
might
don't know.
be. I mean, for sure. Like I was always like the person that loved gummies, like Sour Patch
Me
Kids or
too.
like Starbursts. So it was never like, oh, those like the little chocolate pieces are like just never the ones that I was really reaching for. So I don't
That's
like when
fair
it's the
enough.
main character, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's more of a supporting character. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, we did get one other question here last second. So this is a short one. 6 catches for 115 yards. How you like me now, you whippersnappers? That's from at Khalif Raymond's grandma, who played Khalif last week and had a big fantasy game. So thank you, Khalif Raymond's grandma. We're really proud of your grandson.
Man, Khalif Raymond's actually looked pretty good. Like, I don't know what Amon-Ra St. Brown has done to the like Jared Goff, but clearly he was a swing and miss for me in terms of a potential sleeper option. But yeah, I've been very impressed with what I've seen with Khalif Raymond. So if you are listening, Khalif Raymond's grandmother, I'm very proud of your grandson.
And as we know, you never want to anger the Egyptian gods like Amon-Ra. So, stick with Khalif.
Very true. Very true. All right. That will do it for this spooky mailbag episode. As a reminder, Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon are here on the Fantasy Flex every Monday and Wednesday and Friday, giving you guys all the DFS waiver wire rankings info to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. I will be back next Tuesday with another round of 21 questions with a special guest, Dan Claskins of Fantastics on Sirius XM. I'm on his show sometimes, so I'm sure that'll be a fun time. He will be bragging all about his Bengals fandom. I will be back obviously next Thursday with Brandon for another mailbag episode. Don't forget, please send us any mailbag questions to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Thanks again for listening. Please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts. Download us wherever you like to listen, and we will see you next time on the Fantasy Flex presented by PrizePicks. Peace out, y'all.